Hey guys, it's a great morning for you guys to join us. Today is actually quite a cool day. Today is actually a special day in the church calendar. It's a day called Pentecost. So we're going to get a little bit into that now. It's got a bit of a story behind it and sort of a lesson that we can look at for ourselves to see what we can take from it. So let's get into our story now. So the story of Pentecost actually, in a way, starts with Jesus, where Jesus died on the cross when he was resurrected. You see, Jesus stayed with us for many days before he actually went up to heaven. He didn't go straight up into heaven immediately. You see, last week, about a week and a bit ago, we had something called Ascension Day, where Jesus, what we do is we celebrate where Jesus kind of ascended into heaven. But before Jesus ascended into heaven, he said something to his disciples. He said that I will send a helper to help you before he ascended to heaven. So he ascended to heaven, and all of his disciples, all of his friends were kind of like, what do you mean you're going to send a helper? And I don't think they fully understood what Jesus was talking about. You see, what Jesus was talking about was he was actually going to send someone or something down from the kingdom of heaven down to us here. And so what happened was the disciples were actually sitting in a room. You see, the disciples were actually quite scared for their lives because they were actually trying to stay away from the Romans, because Jesus was killed on the cross. Even though he was resurrected and everything, people were still sort of hunting down these people who believed in Jesus. And so the disciples were sitting in this room, and what started to happen was there was this great gush of wind that just started to come blowing. It was blowing hard and hard. And what had happened was the disciples, they started to look on each of each other's heads, and above their heads was actually this flame, this kind of this fire, it seemed. And so everyone there, like something strange was happening. You see, they weren't talking their normal language. They were actually talking in all sorts of different languages, and it was quite weird. Everyone was sort of babbling on in these different languages, and it seemed as though something was changing as well inside of the disciples. You see, when Jesus said he was going to send a helper, he actually sent the Holy Spirit to come down to be with us. And so the Holy Spirit came upon the disciples, and it was that day where the flames of fire was above their head. They could speak in all these different languages. They went out of that room and they started to speak to all these different people around them. You see, there was also where they were people from all walks of life, people with all sorts of different languages that were gathering there with them in Jerusalem. And so here they were speaking in all these different languages where everyone could understand what they were saying. And here's the cool thing about God. He wanted everyone, not just one specific group of people, not just one specific language. He wanted everyone to hear the good news of Jesus. He wanted everyone to hear what Jesus had done and what Jesus was trying to teach us. And this was the cool thing about Pentecost. You see, when Jesus went up, the Holy Spirit came down, and the Holy Spirit is with us here on earth. So here's the takeaway that we can take from this. You see, when Jesus is with us, he said, go out and make disciples of all nations. He was telling us, not just his disciples, not just his friends, he was telling us as well. And what we learn from Pentecost is that we actually have that power. When we go out to go and tell everyone else about Jesus and make those disciples, make those people that would follow Jesus, you see, the Holy Spirit is with us, and it's the Holy Spirit that helps us and brings us forward, but not just for us, but to the people that we go to. And so this is one of the great things about Pentecost, that it was not just for the people back then, but it's also for us here now, that the Holy Spirit is with us. Even though Jesus ascended, his Spirit is still with us here. So go out today and know that God's Holy Spirit is with us and with you as you go out. No matter who you speak to, who you are with, God's Holy Spirit is with you. And so here's the challenge for today. Try and almost instill that spirit in somebody else, whether it's even through a small act of just smiling at a random person or saying hello or having a good day, or even in some way striking up some sort of conversation about Jesus with somebody else, even if it's someone in your own home. So that's the challenge for today. Cheers, guys.